about a minute in, so in order to give Zach enough time to present, I'll go ahead and get started here. Hope everybody had amazing holidays, got some time to relax with family. If you're like me, you're more than happy to have the kids back at school now. But thank you to everybody for joining today's Lean Bites. My name is Jason Buck. I'm the Business Development Director here at Lean Techniques. If this is your first time here, welcome. Just a reminder, Lean Bites are short 16-minute talks where we work to provide you with simple, practical tips and techniques that you can start applying within your organization today. Just for housekeeping, one, if you have any questions throughout today's talk, just drop them in the chat and we'll address them at the end if time allows and offer more insight on maybe an email follow-up if we don't have time. And please do us a huge favor. And at the end of the Lean Bites, once you click out of the Zoom, a survey will appear. If you could fill that out for us, that would be awesome. It just takes a couple seconds and really helps us plan kind of next sessions and get some feedback too. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Very excited to introduce Zach Hardin. He's a professional software consultant here at LT, and he is going to be discussing influencing others regardless of title and position. Zach, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. So as Jason mentioned, we're talking about influencing, and no, that doesn't mean becoming a TikTok influencer or YouTube influencer, but you're welcome to check out my YouTube page if you want to. It's out there. So yeah, we are talking about influencing. So how do you influence people on your team, whether they are at a peer level, maybe they're below you, or maybe they're your boss? How do you build that influence and where do you start? So if you Google this in Google or look it up on YouTube, there are several articles and YouTube pages out there that talk about influencing. So there's dozens of ideas, but I've gathered 4 ideas that we'll be looking at today that I think they're small little bite sizes that you can start working on today and hopefully see some impacts. So let's get started. First point is building trust. And a lot of people, when you talk about trust, they really focus on the relationship aspect of it. So setting up one-on-ones, that's all important, right? That's a great way to build trust. But since everyone talks about that, I want to shift and look at trust from a different perspective. And the question I want you to ask yourself is, am I trustworthy? Now, that isn't in the sense of, do I always speak the truth and nothing but the truth? But it's more of, am I reliable? Can my team depend on me? So an example of this, I was working with a team a while ago, and this team, they were great. They were always there to help us out. They would help us with problems, and they were great. They said yes to that. They said yes to everything and everyone. But because they said yes to everyone, things would often fall off their plate. And when we had deadlines coming up and we were relying on them, they were weeks or months behind schedule. And maybe there was something we could have done to circumvent that, but that trust between us and that team was greatly impacted, and we couldn't rely on them. So I think when it comes to being reliable, there's different ways that looks different from person to person, but sometimes it means we have to learn to say no or not now. Something I like to do is make sure I'm following up when a request comes through. So I love sticky notes. I'm stealing them from work all the time. And whenever I get a request, I'll write it down and I'll put it on my monitor, and it lives there until that task is complete. So it's just making sure that you're following up and you're getting things done and things don't get forgotten about. And another way that you can build trust, and this is the easiest way you can build trust, is simply by showing up. And in today's world where most of us work remote, there are so many distractions. We've got our phone, we've got laundry waiting to go to the dryer, we've got the dog that needs to be let out. There are so many distractions. How can we show up on a daily basis that shows that we're there and we're willing to help the team? Simple ways are, one, just turning on your camera. And I know that's a controversial topic sometimes to talk about, but communication involves our body language, right? When we're frowning or we're nodding, we show that we understand or we don't understand something. And that's such a big aspect to communication. And communication is huge for building that trust. Because if we don't have that communication, then you're not going to influence anyone. So challenge today is I hope everyone turns on their camera by the end of this meeting. So we'll see. That's today's challenge. So let's say you're working on that trust, you're working on becoming reliable. What's the next step that you can focus on? That would be becoming an expert, demonstrating that excellence. And the question here that I want you to ask yourself is, can I demonstrate expertise in my craft? Can I discuss my domain with ease, with that excellence, with clarity? And if you're like me and you're a human, can you find the answers to questions that you don't know? Because we don't know everything, right? But can we get those answers? So an example of this, last year, some colleagues and I, we went bowling. And if you've ever bowled with me, I'm terrible at it. Horrible. You don't want me on your team because I hit gutter balls again and again. And I'm lucky if I hit one bowling pin. If you wanted to become an expert bowler or just get better, you're probably not going to come to me for advice because I'm terrible at bowling. Instead, you're going to go to somebody that actually has that expertise, can actually hit a strikeout. So how does this apply to your work life? Are you an expert? So being an expert, there are multiple tiers to it. Sometimes it involves being an expert in a tech stack, if you're an engineer like me. Or if you're in the product world, maybe it's being an expert in what the product or what the customers want. Or if you're an intern or you're new to software development, a great way to gain that expertise is learning to champion a feature that comes in. Because when you do have that expertise and you're in a meeting with your boss and your boss's boss, and you can demonstrate that excellence, they're going to know that you're an expert and they're going to be able to trust your input because you've demonstrated that excellence. So this isn't a hit if you don't have that. We all have to start somewhere, but maybe it's a sign that you need to carve out a little more time to learn or to grow a bit more. Maybe find a mentor, someone that you trust and someone that will hold you accountable. And that's the important piece, that accountability. You have to give your mentor the accountability to hold you responsible. Because if you're like me, sometimes you slack off. I slack off all the time. And sometimes a kick in the butt is useful. So work on becoming an expert, and then you'll be faced with a new problem, which is keeping your ego in check. And that's our next point. There is a fine line between confidence and cockiness, and we got to keep that ego in check. We need to cultivate a curious mindset. And just because you're the smartest guy in the room doesn't mean there aren't other perspectives or ideas that are bad or good, right? I was working with a junior software developer not long ago, and we were pairing on this feature, and I had all the steps mapped out. I knew we had to do A, B, and C in order to get this thing done. And I was explaining this to him, and he asked me this question, and he's like, why can't we do this? And I thought about it. It was a simpler idea, but it got the job done a lot faster. It wasn't something I actually considered. And this came from someone that was still pretty new to development. And we went with that idea and it worked. So just because maybe you're at different levels, there are good ideas and perspectives that come through when you stay curious. So cultivate a curious mindset with your team, and that can really get ideas flowing and expands that influence. Because when you stay in that ego mindset, it really shuts down other people's ideas. And then that kind of goes back to the relationship side. It just kind of puts a wall between you and other people. So the last point we've got here is leading by example. And this one, I know it's pretty cliche. Everyone's heard it, lead by example, be a role model. But what happens when you don't lead by example? What happens when you're not bringing your A game, or you're not showing up and doing your part. An example of this is back in the day, sailors and pirates, they had this belief that they didn't want any bananas on board. And the idea is if you've got a banana that's past its expiration date, it's all black and brown and mushy and just really gross, you wouldn't want to eat it, right? If you put that banana next to healthy fruit, what's going to happen? That healthy fruit is going to rot a lot faster than its expiration date. So in the same vein, when we join teams and we're not stepping forward with our best foot, it can really impact the team morale, the team health, and then team productivity. So leading by example, and we won't be perfect every time, right? But when we at least strive to lead by example and we are trying to, lead others to do better and we're bringing our best foot forward, it can inspire the team. And when the team does well, then the team gets recognition and other people can see that you're performing well as a team. And that can influence other teams to say, what is that team doing that's so great? How can we get some of that? So that's what I call the magic sauce there. So as we come to an end here, those are just 4 ideas. There's several more out there, but I stress to try building trust, focus on those relationships, and ask yourself, how can I be reliable? And turn on your cameras because those are great for communicating. And identify those areas where you can improve on your expertise and your skills. Keep your ego at home, or if you're working at home, keep it in the basement so your coworkers don't see it. And lead by example. That's all I got. Jason?
Well, good stuff there. We definitely appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining. We'll wrap this up. Again, next month is going to be February 4th at 11:45. We have a handful of potential speakers and topics that we're kind of pouring through. So make sure you check our social media, and you'll also be getting the Lean Bites emails to remind you of what's happening. And if you have any ideas for things that you want to hear, please let us know. Check out our website, contact us, or anybody else that's on this that you may know. And we'll see if we can find an expert to go through some things. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you for joining, and great job, Zach. Happy days. Happy New Year. Take care, everybody.